Together. I'm Sapphy.
I'm Mystic.
And we're here because we're going to go through and deep dive through video game lore, stories, backgrounds, worlds, because that's what we do together. We lore together. If you want to hear more about us, you can catch us on Twitter at LoreTogether. You can also email us at loretogether@gmail.com. And if you want to support the production and research of this show, go to patreon.com/loretogether. And you'll also be able to get a lot of awesome goodies that we want to gift to you, our lovely listeners.
So thank you for listening, and let's begin.
Okay, so there I was, living my best life, and then my husband decides that he's not going to tell me about these 5 books that we now found, which I'm assuming are the 5 ages that you wanted to get into next.
Yes.
And I'm just sitting here... anxious as all heck, wondering what are these ages? Because we've already mentioned a couple of ages. We are in the age of Myst because that's how the multi-universe works now.
Yes.
Unless your multi-universe is a library full of barbecued books that we still don't know. That wasn't like, we didn't burn down the whole library. No. We decided that we were going to individually roast each book.
Yeah.
And destroy each universe like that.
And it has to be individual. I didn't explain this part, actually, of the librry. I forgot this last time.
Oh, no. So this is going to be even more evil. Okay.
So there's the library, and there's 4 books that aren't burnt in this library. These are journals, actually, for some of these ages.
Oh.
Those are unburnt, and they're not next to each other. They're kind of scattered around on all the shelves.
Right, you mentioned.
So they're not even like
books.
all burnt in a group. Like they selectively burnt certain ones.
This sounds like somebody, and again, we were talking about sociopaths and those meticulous, cold-hearted types. This sounds like somebody went through and said, "Bye to this one, bye to this one. No, this one's fine. I'll keep that here. Bye to this one, bye to like that is just evil villain level of planning.
Right.
Ooh, that's a horror story.
So I had to actually dig a little bit to try to figure out the order of the ages to bring them out in, because there's no order you have to do them in.
Well, that's nice. That's good. I prefer that in a game like this.
There's the 5th age that was included in the real Myst games.
Okay.
So that one will be last in here because it also kind of ties in with future events.
Okay.
But the main 4 of Myst are any order.
Okay.
But they were written, at least one of them was written early.
Okay.
The other ones kind of don't have a set time. At least I couldn't figure out a set timeline for them.
Okay.
I mean, there is a timeline, but the timeline's like blah, 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 blah were written. It wasn't like this was 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. It's like the only one I know is Stoneship was the first one.
Okay.
Which didn't have a name when Atrus wrote it. Atrus is the writer of all these ages.
Wait, Atrus is the writer of the whole library?
Yes, it is his library that was burnt.
Wait, so is he one of these fabled Dundies? Or Dunny. Crocodile Dundee is a universe maker, guys. That's my canon now. No, he's Dunny.
He is 1/4 Dunny, 3/4 human.
So he has a Dunny grandparent.
Yes.
That came to Earth, fell in love.
More like the Dunny. Okay, so
that's the way
little tiny nugget from in the future games. The Dunny exist on Earth in a cavern miles and miles and miles below New Mexico.
So they are essentially the Illuminati secret that people have been alluding to on it. So you're telling me if Beyonce is Illuminati, she's really a Dunny. That's really what we're getting at right now.
As far as anyone can say, Atrus's line is the last of the Dunny on Earth.
Okay.
So long ago, the civilization collapsed. There was only a few survivors.
So and
Atrus is descended from one of
the survivors.
Yeah.
Okay.
His line is directly tied to that collapse and the survivors of that collapse.
Okay.
But yeah, Atrus is 1/4 Dunny, 3/4 human.
Okay.
Catherine is 100% Rivenese.
Okay.
So their sons are half Rivenese, 1/8 Dunny, and whatever is left.
Then it's 7/8 human.
Well, no, because she's Rivenese, so they're half Rivenese.
So they're 1/8 Dunny, so then there would be 3/8 human.
Yeah.
I being a multiracial individual, I've had to do this stuff. Okay.
Right. But Rivenese for all intents and purposes, I couldn't find if the Rivenese were considered human or not.
Oh, okay.
But for all intents and purposes, I can't find anything that says they aren't.
They're human enough to have kids with humans. I'll keep it at that. I think that's fair.
So let's get into the individual world of Stoneship, which is one of the first ages Atrus writes when he's living on Myst.
Okay. Do we know how he got to Myst?
Yes.
Okay. Are we talking about that now or later?
Later.
Okay.
That will be...
Get used to hearing that a lot, I guess, guys. This is just
if
what
I
we're
wanted
doing.
to do 40 episodes on Myst in a row, I would go insane.
That's
so we'll
fair.
have to break it up.
Okay. All right.
We will get to that story after a few other side branches into other games, into other franchises, other series.
Right.
So he wrote this early on in Myst, when he was living on Myst, and it kind of starts very simply. The ages have periods of time before Atrus goes there.
Okay.
Like, this is one of the few things that is actually kind of established, is that people, if they live there, have a history before whoever writes it first visits.
Okay, that makes sense.
So in Stoneship, it's very weirdly, charmingly simple.
All right.
It starts off, Emmett was the first inhabitant of the rocks and lived in a cave on the largest rock. Stoneship is literally just a bunch of rocks in an endless ocean.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So this is baby's first age, okay?
It's not his first, but it's definitely a simpler age. He's still experimenting and trying to figure stuff out. Okay. In fact, when he shows up, he didn't even realize there would be people there.
Because he only wrote Emmett, it sounds like.
He didn't write anybody.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He didn't write people in. As you write, apparently, the world takes a shape based on how you write, and it's like knowing what's going to happen is almost, it's possible, but also impossible at the same time.
Oh, so you're creating something you don't have full control over.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's a seed value you're writing.
Right, that's what you said. Okay. So he wrote these rocks, as you said, this seed value, and suddenly he pops up and he's like, "Whoa!" It's kind of like how people thought flies just came out of rotting flesh out of nowhere. I forget what that term was, but but essentially, yeah.
But so Atrus didn't even arrive yet. So Emmett was the first inhabitant of the rocks, and he kind of lived in a cage on this largest rock in this grouping of rocks they lived in. And then he was joined by Branch, and these are all boys. These are all young kids.
Oh, wow.
And
Lord of the Flies situation going on over here.
And Branch also found a cave in the same rock. So there's like these big rock with two caves in it.
So they're neighbors. They're cave neighbors. Cave nerds.
Right. And eventually a third boy showed up who Emmett named Will because he had no name of his own. And literally, like, none of these people care about how they came to be here. They're just here.
Wow.
And they have no idea what civilization even is.
Right. So they just eat, breathe, die, poop on this rock.
Yeah.
And that's just...
Fish, swim. They do a lot of swimming.
I'm sure that's... Because he didn't even bother to give them anything fun like a chessboard or a TV or something like that.
Well, he didn't expect anybody either. And eventually he does arrive. And like an hour after soon after he arrives, it rains for the first time and the boys are like freaked out.
Oh my god.
To the point that he's like, no, look, it's fine. Come out. Come out of the caves. It's fine. It's just rain.
Your god has told you that rain is okay.
He really tries to avoid that, actually.
Really? So he doesn't have a god complex.
He goes out of his way to avoid it. In fact, anytime it comes up, it really makes him uncomfortable.
So he's kind of more like, getting back to Star Trek reference, prime directiving it. Like, you live your own truth. I just want to see what you're doing with it.
Yeah, he's not opposed to helping.
Okay.
But he doesn't, he knows he has power, but he respects that he has power.
So.
And he respects that these people can be his friends. They don't need to worship him.
So this is kind of like playing Minecraft with the new...
villagers.
With the villagers and everything.
If the villagers were intelligent, yes.
Yeah. Which, P.S., there's a great video about accidentally doing colonialism with the villagers. I'll show you that later, and we might do a linky-loo into this episode now that I mentioned it. But, yeah. So now what I'm now seeing is, so Atrus is now just playing Minecraft, figuring out the rules.
He is. In fact, it's funny that you say that. He makes a mistake.
What? Like in Stoneship?
In Stoneship, he makes a mistake. There's this vast ocean. He's like, I want to explore. So he goes back home and writes a boat in. But he doesn't understand quite what he's doing yet.
Uh-oh.
So the boat is there, but it's like in the rock. So nobody's hurt in this, but like...
Okay, thank you, because
like,
that sounded like you were about to do a Cronenberg, and it was going to be very sad.
So, but the boat is Cronenberg. The boat is like...
No.
The boat is level and solid, but the bow of the boat is fused into the rock and points to the northeast, roughly, because I don't know which way north is, but it points in like, if this is north, the compass, it points northeast, and the back of the ship is pointing southeast, and also fused with the rock.
So the ship, there's no way the ship is moving anywhere.
It's never moving anywhere.
He wrote the ship in. He
didn't know what he was doing quite yet, so he wrote it in wrong, and it ended up being, like, broken and fused to the rock.
Oh, that's...
But
well,
this
at least
actually...
the little boys don't fuse to the rock, because that would...
No, they love it.
Oh, really?
The little boys love it because it's a place for them to explore now. And they can play around in it and stuff.
They can play in the... But these boys are going to be by themselves, and like, that...
Well, that's the thing. So Atrus, like, he has a stable platform now. Mm-hmm. So he builds, like, a platform up. He built a telescope on the top of the island and stuff, and he's kind of looking around, and he sees lights way off past like, at the edge of the horizon.
Okay.
Like, other lights, like fires or something.
So he thinks there might be more people than
the
boys.
So he and the boys start setting up to build a lighthouse.
Oh.
And they build a lighthouse. Like, the boys are, like, getting into it. These aren't his boys. These are the boys these are Emmett, Branch, and Will.
Right.
Building this lighthouse. This is I think... I could not find anything in there about Sirius and Achenar, so I think this is before he has his own kids even.
Wow. So this is kind of like Hook. Like Robin Hood coming back to become Peter Pan for a bit.
So he writes in these materials to build... Like, he gets a little better with his writing. He writes in the materials to build whatever. So they build this lighthouse. He
hires an editor, and he pays the 10 cents per page. Okay.
And, unfortunately, nameless girl swims up. Nameless man swims up. And, like, all the boys like, yay, more people!
Yeah.
So...
Which makes me scared, because now you said there's an adult. So all the purity and innocence is in theory...
It just says a girl swims up, and then a man swims up.
Okay.
So, like, the boys are happy, and Atrus just leaves.
Oh, he doesn't even finish?
Here's the thing. He has more experiments in his head he wants to do. Not here. He has other ages he wants to write. So he's always writing the next age.
So, is that when he stops writing Stoneship?
He has already stopped writing it when they built the lighthouse. Then he comes back to see how the people do.
Okay.
And he comes back 10 years later, and the civilization has flourished.
Wow.
Like, all this stuff. And he leaves again shortly after, just kind of, wonder what it'll be in another 10 years.
Yeah.
He never gets back.
Oh.
And we'll get back to what happens to the place later, because you visit after all this has happened already.
That scares me now, because like this, there's so many horrible things that could happen. Because it's like, oh, your creator has left.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be good or bad.
But again, he never actually wrote himself as a god.
I mean,
so
that makes me happy, because I would hope that if there is a god, that they would be that chill.
He kind of starts becoming the I can help you, what do you need type person.
Oh, like kind of like, hey, do you need shoes? I'll write in some shoes for you.
Bit more advanced than that, but yeah.
All right. Do you need a dam? I'll write a dam for you or something.
Yeah, or he'll write the structure to make a dam, and then he'll design it with you.
Oh, okay.
You know, stuff like that. So let's go to the next age.
Okay.
Which, these next three, I don't know
which order they
wrote it in.
He wrote them in, okay.
So the next age is called Channelwood. And he actually wrote this one with a name first. Like, he actually wanted this kind of to look a certain way.
So he had an idea of what he wanted to do, whereas Stoneship is now obviously...
Stoneship is called Stoneship because of what he did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This one is the one that's under the cabin, under the tree.
Okay.
And you can kind of see that they sometimes follow a theme.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, a little on the nose, Atrus. You know, try to be a little bit more mysterious about it.
But before Atrus even visits, this world was very weird.
Okay.
It is a large island in the middle of a vast ocean.
There's a theme here I'm sensing.
I'm thinking that it's probably just easier to write. Probably
also easier to program than, say, like the Little Prince version of Worlds, where it's their floating bodies in space that you just hop over.
There's a lot of, thinking about it right now, there's a lot of ages that are either islands or in the middle of vast desert. Like, there's always, like, nothing around it.
Right.
But there's always a surprise as to what's actually around it.
Right, okay, yeah.
So he writes Channelwood, but before he shows up, there's this island with the trees and everything. There's the humans who are land dwellers.
The humans are land dwellers. Oh, wait, are there mermaids? Please tell me there's mermaids.
There are no mermaids.
No!
There are tree dwellers.
So...
Who are more primitive, monkey-like people.
So kind of like chimps, okay?
Here's the thing. They are sentient.
Well, I think chimps are sentient. I know, at me about it,
but,
okay? Whatever.
So they're monkey-like, they're sentient.
Okay.
Sometimes in some of the books, the tree dwellers are called creatures. I'm going to call them people.
Yeah, that feels weird if you're saying they're sentient.
I think it's more just like the way people were writing in the 90s.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, I think these days there would be beings if nothing else.
Persons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the tree dwellers and the land dwellers, they live separately, but have respect for each other.
They're chill. That's your spot. This is our spot.
Right.
We're fine.
And then some cataclysm happens, and the land starts to crumble. Starts to sink below the water.
No.
Through some way, the land dwellers actually managed to stop this from taking over everything through some sacrifice of their own. They sacrifice themselves in some way that the land is the only thing that sinks. The tree dwellers' habitat is safe.
So wait, there's like this sounds like a hand wave situation where there's an idea of a sacrifice, but we just don't know what it is?
Right.
Okay. And Atrus wrote it that way so that...
No. The thing is, the histories of these worlds are not written by Atrus.
It's just different. Okay.
It's just the result of what he's describing, but he's not describing the history.
Oh, okay.
He just describes... what type of rock there is, what type of plants there are, and even then, it doesn't always turn out that way. Because one word 50 pages before can change what that word means.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So they self-sacrifice. There is a single lone survivor of the land dwellers who is living with the tree dwellers now.
In the trees?
In the trees.
Okay.
The tree dwellers have, huts that are built in the trees with walkways and stuff. They're a society.
Okay, yeah.
So they're not, just... swinging from tree to tree.
A primitive society, but a society, it sounds like.
A primitive society, a primitive culture.
Okay.
They do have culture and everything.
Yeah.
So there's this lone survivor, and the tree dwellers kind of just worship him and revere him.
Really?
His people sacrificed themselves so that they could live. So they see him as a hero, as a god figure. He doesn't have any powers, but he is representative of all the sacrifices that they made.
Suddenly they're on the Mario show, and it turns out the lie detector test reveals he is the reason the island is sinking. Everybody loses their minds.
Atrus visits, and there's this tiny piece of land.
Yeah.
There's nothing on it, but there's just this tiny little piece, probably the top of a mountain or something that was left.
Yeah.
And he falls asleep there, and then he wakes up surrounded by tree dwellers.
Whoa. Okay, that's creepy.
And they're all, bowing down at him.
Because does he look like...
He looks like a land dweller.
Okay.
And he is immediately uncomfortable with this. He's like, I don't like this.
Oh, I like making things. I don't like you knowing I made it.
Right.
Okay. Like Banksy. He's the Banksy of age creators there.
So he's uneasy with this. They take him to the chief of the village or whatever.
Okay.
Or the leader. And one of his, advisors, quote unquote, or, most respected people is this original survivor who is decades old by this point.
Oh, okay.
And creakily gets up and talking to Atrus and stuff. And Atrus understands what he's saying, but he doesn't understand what the tree dwellers are saying. The tree dwellers speak a more primitive language. He doesn't understand him. He understands the land dweller.
Okay.
And he goes, it's, we've been waiting, blah, 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 all this stuff. And then he jumps.
What?
He goes down...
The creaky old advisor dude.
Basically sacrifices himself.
What?
And the people, the tree dwellers kind of take him to, one of the piers that is built there, and they burn his body.
What?
Which changes the color of all the water to, this deep green that it stays. Up until then, it had, periodically changed color to different colors and stuff. Now it just stays the same color.
So he's the last sacrifice for stability. Okay. And does he explain why he has to do it, or he just does it?
Honestly, I don't remember that part.
He doesn't.
I think he explained. He's like, we've been waiting for you, and my time is done.
Okay.
So now it's Atrus is kind of the guardian, and he kind of gets into this weird thing with the tree dwellers where he learns their language slowly. And he actually brings Circe and Aknar here with him at one point, and they actually pick up the language pretty quickly.
Okay.
They're young.
Well, because how old are they when he brings them?
They're still boys.
Okay.
So
yeah, that picks up. That makes sense.
And the tree dwellers do have their own culture. They have their own language, obviously. They adorn their leader. Like, he has a more extravagant hut and everything. And so they have, like, a hierarchy and stuff.
Right. But that's still kind of, like, primitive agriculture. Like, before we even got to agriculture.
They play practical jokes on Atrus.
Okay.
They give him ink for his book, for his journal.
Yeah. And
they don't tell him that the ink changes color over time. So as you're reading the journal, because these are the journals that are in the library.
Yeah.
Like the journal entries start changing color.
But that's
because they didn't tell him.
The world. So
no, the journals aren't the world. The journals are just journals. They're just like his diaries of what he was doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There you go.
Yeah, the journals are separate from the books the descriptive books.
Okay. Fair. Okay.
But
I was worried for a second.
He's kind of like, they didn't tell me it would change colors. Like,
yeah.
So his book is like purple and orange and green and.
That's fun to read. That's exactly what I read. I want to go back to the late 90s when we had gel pens with glitter and not be able to read half of any of the notes that I'm taking from my math class. Yeah.
Luckily, you can read these actually because I'll like quill on pen.
Oh,
on
okay.
Parchment. Yeah. And you know he periodically goes and leaves his sons there. Because they kind of have a good rapport with the tree dwellers and stuff, and they make little boats and explore the surrounding water and stuff, and back and forth, and that's kind of where it ends with Channelwood.
So then he leaves and doesn't go back.
The boys kind of stay there for a long time. By the way, Catherine, I don't think ever visits any of these 4 ages.
She's the kind of spouse where it's like, look, that's your thing, and I want you to have your thing because that's your thing, and I'm just not going to be in part of it, and I can understand that because I do that with you sometimes, like. This is your thing. I mean, that's what I did with Myst until just now. I'd be like, this is your thing, and I want you to appreciate it, and I don't want to be the sourpuss that ends up ruining it for you in one way or another.
Right.
So you go have your thing, and I'll do my thing over here, and that's fine. I think that's a key to a healthy relationship, and that people should consider doing it. Good on Myst for teaching these skills. So,
I could be wrong. There's going to be someone who's going to be like, no, she went to this, blah, blah, blah.
Well,
and like,
just tweet at us or something. Email us and let us know.
You can find links to do that all in the description.
Yeah, the link you lose is what I like to call them. So,
but let's get on to the mechanical age, which is found in the giant gears.
The mechanical age, which is found in the giant gears, yes, as you said. So on the Atrus, you need to be better about.
He gets better.
More subtle.
He gets better.
I mean,
and if you want to talk, Atrus titles his ages.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a thing that he titles them. Eventually, we'll get to his father.
Oh, okay.
His father is lacking for some imagination. His ages are numbered.
Oh, that makes me sad.
Yeah.
And that's the one that's half Dunny?
Yes.
Okay, so
But we'll get to him in some future episode. So the mechanical age, before Atrus shows up, it's this big city on an endless ocean. Not endless, though. But it's this big city. We'll just say it's a big city on the water, and it's surrounded by 3 hills.
Okay.
And there's people who live in the city. They don't know how to travel on the water.
Okay.
But they suspect that people will be coming from the east.
Do they have any reason why?
I didn't remember if they do or not.
Okay.
And a lot of this is told in a story to Atrus later. So it's kind of like oral history and that type of stuff.
Okay.
But eventually they do get some friendly visitors from
the east.
But they expected people to come from the east, so they built this lookout on the eastern hill.
Okay.
It's this big thing. But the visitors that came told them about these black ships.
Okay.
Who would come from beyond the horizon. And then one day, the sky turned black as night.
Not the black ships, but the sky turned black.
The sky turned black as night, and the black ships appeared and just destroyed the city to the point that the foundations crumbled and the city sank below the water.
There's a lot of sinking below water, too. There seems to be multiple themes of everything that's grown tall then proceeds to recede into the water or something.
And we'll be visiting back all these ages later.
Okay.
As we go through the story of the actual game. This is all just in the journals.
Okay.
But the only thing that's left is the lookout on this east hill.
So there's one lookout left from this entire city after the whole city sinks.
And there's only 8 people left from this whole city.
That's another horror story. And then suddenly they have to eat each other. It's cannibalism. Oh my gosh. Donner's...
There's no idea how these people survive, but... It is foretold that in 10 years, the ships would return. The
black ships would return?
Yes.
But they didn't even... But it was the sky that turned black. It's not like they're going to come back in the first place, are they?
They will.
But they weren't even there. Okay, makes no sense.
This is all in a story that was told to Atrus by one of the survivors.
I do not trust the survivor's storytelling.
So, let's just take this as the ships will return in 10 years.
Okay.
9 years later, Atrus first shows up.
Oh, because that's comforting to them, I'm sure.
And he hears this story from one of the old survivors.
Okay.
And that's why it's kind of...
One of the 8 survivors.
6 now.
Oh, 2 of them died off?
Yeah.
Okay. They were like, I'm not waiting for these ships.
I think. It was either 10 were left and 2 died, or 8 were left and 2 died. I couldn't remember which one it was. But 2 survivors died over those 9 years.
Okay.
Presumably they fished or something.
Okay. I hope so.
Right. Otherwise, these people live incredibly long amounts of time without any sustenance.
And that sounds like suffering to me, so...
But he decides through this story that he's going to try to help these people.
Okay.
From this enemy. Atrus is not a person who really suffers injustice well.
Okay.
So
Which is why he doesn't like the God complex, because he doesn't want to be the source of injustice either.
So he decides that rather than fight, they're going to resist. So he kind of works with them to build a giant fortress, rotating fortress that can withstand any bombardment or whatever from these black ships. So he, along with Cirrus and Achenar and some of the more able-bodied survivors, build this large rotating fortress to withstand the attack. Mm-hmm. And when the attack comes, they do survive.
Okay.
And his sons actually, had fun building and, felt accomplished and all this other stuff.
And I'm assuming they're a little older than they were when they were hanging out in Channelwood. I believe so.
It's always a little vague, but I think they were actually older. But, it's kind of this funny thing. There's this note that Cirrus and Achenar kind of detest the sky, which is now, this dark gray the whole time.
Oh.
And one of the survivors tells them, well, that's because the pirates are still around. The black ships are still around or whatever.
Right.
And it's not going to turn blue again until they're all gone.
Okay.
A little bit of mysticism in Myst.
Yeah. Ooh, who would have thought mysticism was going to happen?
But they withstand this bombardment, and Atrus would rather not kill the pirates, simply resist them, and basically just help these people survive. And, these people dance all these old-timey dances that they had, from their old culture. Right, and Atrus is just that's cool.
Just go on with your bad self. Break it down. Woo!
And he doesn't come back. That's the end of the journal, pretty much.
Okay.
For the most part. Then we go to, I don't know how to pronounce this one, Selentic age?
Selentic age. Selentic. It sounds like a commercial on TV where they're going to read about, 60 different symptoms I may or may not have. If I just ask your doctor, Selentic is right for you.
I do have to mention, getting the linking book for the Selentic age is probably one of the most frustrating puzzles in any game.
Okay.
The long and short of it is, there's a bunch of sliders in the ship.
Okay.
There is a piano behind you. There is a diagram in the book, the journal that he wrote for the Selentic age.
I'm already skeptical, guys. I'm tilting my head. I'm raising my brow. I am not comfortable with where this is going.
There's 5 keys on the piano that are highlighted and numbered.
Oh.
You hit those keys on the piano, one at a time, and then you turn around and turn the corresponding slider to the same pitch. It is the worst puzzle in the game.
Yeah, I mean...
You need to have pitch-perfect hearing, and even then it's still frustrating.
No, forget that. Why would you do that to people? Why is that fun? Nobody finds that fun. Unless you're a music major, nobody finds that fun.
And they have since said it was a bad idea.
Never again. They never did that again, I hope, right? They learned their lesson.
They like working their puzzles into the world.
Okay.
Myst was a little bit more obtuse than what they like to do, but it's also the first time.
And I will give it that it was early, nobody else was doing anything like this, they were able to make mistakes, but the idea of pitch, most people don't learn that intuitively, so you're then limiting it to only to people who have a certain professional expertise, which
I did it
is not cool.
So in the organ kind of has a dee, 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 it has a repeat, a little change in the tone when you're doing it.
Yeah.
I would get that rhythm down and then match the rhythm. I wouldn't match the tone because it was hard to tell the tone.
Right, that makes more sense.
But even then, it's still hard. In the real Myst versions, they made it a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier to dial it in, I felt.
But still, if I want to play this game, I have to have pitch. And I don't have pitch. I am not a musically trained person. Right. I have other talents. I'm glad I haven't picked up this game, because this is the part where essentially I would flip the table.
This is the part where a lot of people got annoyed.
I would be smashing my computer.
It is a really bad puzzle.
Yeah.
The world is all sound-based, but it's not that type of sound. It's like just telling different sounds apart, not musical tones.
Right, and I mean, you're assuming that people have good enough speakers that they can tell the difference well, too. And this is before
Or aren't deaf.
Thank you! Let's talk about making your games accessible.
And that's kind of a thing that I wish more games did, because a lot of games don't take into account, like, color blindness. And
they're getting better with color blindness.
They're getting better. It's still slow progress.
It's slow progress, but they're getting there. Now, but being deaf is another thing entirely, because there's so much sound that's associated with it.
I think most of the stuff in Myst you could do with subtitles. I don't think you can do the slider piano puzzle with subtitles.
You just have to make a whole new puzzle for that.
Right.
So,
so this world, once we get there and read the journal and stuff, this world has always been uninhabited.
Okay.
When Atrus gets there, it is a tranquil island.
Another island. Atrus, man. You need to get out more and get some more inspiration.
I sometimes wonder if parts of this is the limitations of rendering technology of the day.
No, I can agree with that. It's probably part of it. But still, if we're talking about somebody who has this ability to write universes and they all start on the same base, it just makes me sad, because you should be exercising your creativity more if you're giving these spaces where you want things and people to live.
I think it's also like, you can't control everything, so let's make it as small of a possible weirdness as possible.
But then you're saying,
because he's still experimenting.
But then you're saying Earth is an age, and you're talking about
Earth is an age that is really old, though, like by the masters of the people who knew all of the intricacies of this thing.
Okay.
Atrus is just kind of poking at it from people who weren't masters of it. He's learned from people who weren't masters of the art.
Okay, so that makes me a little less critical of it.
Yeah, but this place was completely abandoned. Uninhabited. Never had anybody there. And it's just this tranquil island, and Atrus is just there. And the first night, this meteor storm just starts raining down on the island. Convenient.
That's what I want to have happen when I'm on vacation.
So he leaves.
Yeah.
Obviously. And he comes back sometime later, and the place is just wrecked. Most of the plant life has died off. There's giant craters. There was this lake that's now just a giant crater out into the bay, like the ocean. There's one little clutch of trees left.
Oh.
And that's it. That's all that's in this age. The crust has been like bombarded, and there's like it cracked open, and there's like giant caverns under the crust and everything, because it's a shallow ocean. It's only like a few hundred feet maybe total.
Right.
So he and Cirrus actually did this whole thing where they built this rail system exploring all these underground caverns and stuff. And that's actually, like, the linking book is down one specific path you have to follow.
Oh, and then suddenly it becomes like the Donkey Kong Mines game, and you're suddenly doing a scrolling platformer where you have to leap from trail to trail.
No,
I've written the game, right? I know what is happening.
It gets even weirder. So you go to the mechanical age, and you can rotate the fortress to figure out how to unlock the locked area where the linking book back to Myst is. Because these are all locked so that the people who lived in the age couldn't just show up in Myst.
Right.
And so you get to the linking book back to Myst. To do that, you have to rotate the giant fortress. Well, you realize that the giant fortress makes sounds.
Oh, another sound puzzle?
But it's like clang, ding. It's stuff that you can at least caption.
Okay.
Actually, I have them right here. Ding, chirp, swoosh, and cowbell. There's one she's like, donk.
Christopher Walken was talking to those developers. He's like, what this really needs is more cowbell.
But then you need to know that information when you get to the Selentic age, because the directions you go on the tram are given to you by sounds, where north is one sound, east is another sound, west is another sound, and you have to combine sounds too to do certain
So to solve a puzzle, sometimes you need more cowbell.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm liking this. I'm liking where this is going. I can pick this up. So I'm liking the cowbell.
Right. So, unfortunately, there's not a lot that's known as to why they built a lot of other stuff on the age. Like, there's a replica of the Myst clock tower, but it's, like, destroyed. So
maybe that's something that Atrus built when it was peaceful, and then suddenly rocks fall, you die. Literally.
No, this was built after. It's so weird. Like, there's so many things that aren't unexplained because, like, there's nobody here. To get to the tram, you have to unlock it by doing, like, this weird sound puzzle.
Right.
But there's nobody here, so why did he lock it?
Well, but did Atrus do it, or is it one of these people that's meddling with his ages?
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's where my brain went once we were talking about not trusting certain other narrators.
We can actually explain that a little bit, actually. Circe and Achenar, the two people he suspects,
do
not know the art. They do not know how to write. They understand basic principles of, like, how a world could work. They had, like, some training in, like, what worlds could be or understanding how different things could work, but they have no idea how to write it.
So that's really sad, too, because then when you realize what's going on, and you have these journals of these ages, and you realize these ages are the books, like the book that you fell into when you found it on the ground in Arizona. Or New Mexico, you said?
New Mexico.
In New Mexico. And then you go to this library, and you realize this library might be full of all these other universes, and the only person that you know of so far that can write it and can still write it is Atrus, who's stuck, and somebody burnt all of his work, which may have included real people. This is really depressing now.
To that point, actually, it's unknown if burning a book destroys the age, or if it just destroys your ability to travel to it.
So, interesting. So
that universe that quantum reality, quote unquote, may still exist. Just you have no way of getting back there.
You can't alter the algorithm, the seed per se, to.
And apparently, this was actually brought up in the community chat also the other day. Apparently, you can, if you copied a book verbatim, it's still unlikely it would go to the same place.
Right, because as you said, it's a seed. It's only the start point. It's not.
Well, even then, like, there's one point in one of the stories where somebody made a change and it damaged the world to such a point that Atrus yells at them.
Oh.
And this guy in a drunken stupor just, like, crosses out large parts, and there, I fixed it. And so Atrus goes back and everything's the same that it should have been, but the people have no idea who anybody is.
Like, they don't know each other?
They don't know him. Like, they start attacking him and he just runs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's because, like, this whole idea of when you cross out words, you're changing which reality it goes to, like which seed it is.
Oh, okay. There's just two interpretations of the burnt library as you start looking at these journals, and you start realizing that he can't pass on this gift to his sons.
He could.
He could. He just hasn't?
He just hasn't yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So...
Spoiler, he does have another kid eventually, and she does understand a little bit of writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
But, like, the reason we don't know a lot about the Selentic age is because a lot of the stuff, like his journal, entries are written and then they fade. And then they come back in and then they fade. Like, the words have disappeared. And there's actually a journal entry towards the end. It's like, part of my journal is disappearing. I have copied most of what I knew to another journal. So it's something about that age is, like, making stuff disappear from his journal.
I think it's the ink from the primitive people from 2 ages
different
ago.
Ink, but yeah.
That's my theory right
Surprise,
now.
we gave you invisible ink this time.
Or one of the many side effects of the Selentic from the trials.
That is his theory. It's the Selentic age is something about it is weird. And it gives him... He actually describes it as unease when he's there. Like, there's something about the place that just doesn't sit right with him.
So it sounds like he didn't listen to the commercial for Selentic. might not be for you if you're experiencing high blood pressure or hypertension. Please consult with your doctor before taking Selentic today.
Right.
There you go.
So that's the 4 main ages, actually.
So those are 4 main ages. So we've got...
You have Stoneship.
Stoneship, which is basically Lost Boys turned to... Clock Tower civilization.
Right.
Lighthouse civilization,
You have Channelwood, which is the people in the trees.
The primitive people who've survived and think that the land dwellers are the awesomest for letting them live.
Right. You have... But, again, Atrus is not a huge fan of that idea. But he's like, I can't talk them out of this idea. You have the Mechanical Age.
Mechanical Age.
Which is the giant fortress where the people survive, but that's kind of like all we know is that they survived.
They survived, and now there's only 6 of them left. What are they supposed to do? There's no way to repopulate.
And well, maybe they do. We don't know.
And the pirates are still kind of out there.
And you have the Selentic Age, which is just kind of there.
It's kind of there.
Yeah.
The Selentic Age is that tag along to the party who's somebody brown, like, come on, have a good time, you'll have a great time, and they're just clinging to the wall with the beer, looking around like creepster, and you try to start a conversation, and you suddenly realize why they stay home most of the time. That's the Selentic age. All right.
So the brothers, Sirius and Aknar together,
Yeah.
basically trap Catherine in Riven.
Now, why do they not like her?
We'll get to that in a second.
Ah, once
In a
again.
second.
Okay.
In a second.
Okay. I'm
So,
hanging Chad here.
So that's gonna be a T-shirt. So they trap her on Riven, and they basically Atrus, like they put the book on Kavir where Atrus is, and then they trap Atrus there.
So they trap Atrus on Kavir.
Yeah, and he just has it's not explained why he has the Riven book, but he has the Riven descriptive book. Like he's working in it at the end of the game. Like he's like, I'm working on this book, and that's the opening of the next game is like him holding the book towards.
So wait, did he write his own wife into existence essentially?
No.
Okay.
No, Riven is not his age.
He's editing it even though it's not his age?
We'll get there. That is unfortunately not this episode.
Ah, so many hanging chads.
I have to read a book and relearn a game before we do that.
Okay, it's fine. I'm just what I'm saying is there's so much to
If you
chew
think
on
this
here.
is bad, wait till we do Elder Scrolls.
No, I know. Elder Scrolls is going to be worse. This is going to be... Yes.
So Catherine's trapped on Riven. Atrus has the Riven book. He's trapped on Kavir. And the brothers, now that their parents are no longer able to intervene, go on a weird trip.
Like a power trip?
Massive power trip. They go back to all these worlds and just basically lord over them. Like the way that they demand they want to. There's one thing I did kind of leave out because it's a little contentious. There was a Myst comic book that was supposed to run and explain Sirius and Akinar a little bit. But it only ran for one issue. Or 2 issues, one of the 2. It didn't run for very long because the comic book, I think it was IDW, the publisher, made canon mistakes in the comic book and refused to fix them. So the Millers were like, nope, we're done.
Well, I don't blame them. Yeah, that's
like they swapped the names of the brothers.
No, you can't. What? Of all the things to mess up and then decide, oh, I'm not going to change it.
And the brothers basically find the black pirates in Mechanical Age and join up with them.
Oh, no.
And, like, get this taste of, like, tyranny and lording over people and, like, all that stuff.
The raw power of it.
So, they end up going back through all their ages and, like, lording over them and just wrecking them for all whatever.
Because they want the god complex.
Yes.
Okay.
Because their father created these places and they're his son.
So they feel like they're the heirs to a throne.
Which doesn't
exist. Where Atrus is kind of like more a clock starter. Kind of like the...
Yeah, he's much more...
deism level of creation, yeah.
Right. He has the power, but he understands that with that power is a lot of responsibility, and he respects that. And
great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, I didn't want to do the Superman.
Yeah,
Spider-Man line.
Spider-Man.
I corrected myself. So now they go through and they rule over all these places. And Sirius is just collecting wealth in all these ages. And Akinar is like lording over people and torturing people.
Oh, yeah, that's not a good look. Neither of those are a good look.
Akinar has like torture chambers in 2 of the things.
What?
Oh,
that's gross.
There's like one image in one of the ages of one of the like what people surmise is a tree dweller head, just like stuffed.
Oh, that's so sad.
He has a hollow projector in his room in Channelwood. That's like a hollow projector of him speaking the language, so like lording over them, like you do my bidding, I am your god type stuff. Like that's what it looks like. You can't understand him. But...
So they both just looked to each other one day and said, "You know, Dad wrote all this great stuff.
Pretty much.
But we just want to put our fingers in the pie because it's our pie now."
Pretty much. And when you go back, like, so Stoneship is completely deserted.
No.
Everything's flooded.
No.
The lighthouse, like, everything is so destroyed and everything. The lighthouse has sunk into the water so that only the top floor and, like, a little platform remain.
Oh, man.
And they plundered it for all they could. Like, you can find their rooms just filled with all sorts of stuff, including, like, torture devices or gold. Each one is separate in what they want. One wants power and money and like riches, and the other one wants power and like control and like to decimate and experiment and torture.
So it
and
sounds like Akinar is more about, it's kind of the difference between like the psychopath and the sociopath is really what this is. Because one is more about that cold calculating dominance over a situation entirely, which sounds like that's Cirrus. And whereas Akinar is more about the violence, the mayhem, and the impulse.
Yeah.
And essentially and you can still be a and I forget which one is supposed to be which. I think the sociopath is the one that's the more violent, and the psychopath is actually the one who's more cold-hearted, removed, and calculating.
I believe it's the other way.
I've seen it both ways.
Okay.
I've seen it both ways because thanks to the internet, memes confuse all of us.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are psychologists or psychiatrists, just reach out and feel free to clarify which one is supposed to be which. But, I remember when I was reading The Sociopath Next Door, sociopath is supposed to be the cold-hearted, calculated one, but I've also seen people say that's a psychopath. So, anyway, my point is it's almost, two sides of the same coin of evil. That one is more about a kind of like a socio-political dominance, almost, and the other one's more about like a raw, physical, beastly dominance entirely.
Okay. Basically they both inhabit like...
Yeah, and the difference is the one who's cold-hearted, you can get that without any previous trauma, where it's suggested, at least in modern psychology, that to become more of that kind of like violent, one that is causing trauma, that's usually the result of trauma. I told you I was into true crime, so like I know this stuff. So what it suggests, whether or not the Millers who wrote this and produced it meant, it suggests that Akinar went through something and repeatedly that was so awful that now he thinks that is the only way he can feel like he's safe is if he's doing these things like torturing people and threatening people and lording over them in this intimidating way. Whereas Cirrus probably always was naturally a jerk. And which one's older?
I do not remember off the top of my head, actually.
Because if it's Cirrus, it would suggest that the trauma that Akinar has is Cirrus. Right. Now, fans are probably going to go out there and be like, what is this woman talking about? Sapphy has lost her freaking mind. I don't know what she's talking about. But just as somebody who's a writer, and I think I like to think the past is prologue when I write. It's not for everybody, but that's how I analyze it. It gives this interesting dynamic to think that it's possible that Cirrus is the reason why Akinar the way is the way he is.
I could see that. It's kind of so the Cirrus writes a note to Akinar that you find, and kind of the gist of the note is blah blah blah. We're doing this blah blah. Don't forget to take a page, just one, from Father's linking book back to Myst.
Okay.
So it kind of comes across that maybe they both wanted it, but it kind of feels like Cirrus is the one pulling the leash a tiny bit.
So Cirrus is more the leader, and even if he's not necessarily the older one, as long as the age difference isn't that big, it would make sense.
I don't think it is.
I don't know which one's older, but I don't think it's a big difference at all. Yeah, it would make sense that what happened is Cirrus was always the cold, heartless one, and when you're that kind of personality where you're very detached and you don't work it through in ways to figure out why you need to connect with people in a certain way, you do things, like explode frogs with dynamite, and you think that that's fun and cool. Or
we can get to frogs at some point in the future, actually.
Oh, frogs like Frogger or frogs like in Myst?
Frogs in Myst.
Okay, I'm cool with that because frogs are my favorite animal. But
you're not gonna like this then.
Oh, did Cirrus actually blow up frogs with dynamite?
No, we're gonna get that in a future game.
Oh, great. So, but my point is that it would make sense that with the way that this is manifesting, that Cirrus was the one that tortured Akinar with this trauma, because as a kid you're still learning what power is, and a lot of it still is really physical. And as Cirrus got older and more sophisticated, he realized he didn't have to do that anymore, and he actually already did the hard work to torture Akinar, and Akinar is the way he is because of Cirrus. I'm sorry, that's my fan theory now going out there, and I'm not even a fan.
About the brothers we'll find out when we get to Myst 3 and Myst 4.
Okay.
So we'll find out a lot about that then. And unfortunately, I haven't finished those games yet because Myst 3 is a little bit more obtuse in its puzzles. It's a little bit more puzzle for puzzle's sake, so it's not as fun to play for me.
Oh, that's sad.
Myst 4 is very fun, I felt. I'm still just working my way through it.
Okay. But I just...
But there is definitely this implication of, like, the brothers were pissed off that they weren't being taught the art. Like, Sirius especially was pissed off that he wasn't being taught the art.
Because for him, it's more of this power, this dominance, and this being able to, like, I get to play these games with these people now. Because that seems to be... So what it sounds like to me is, and this is only from the first game, from everything you're telling me, that what the game is suggesting is that Catherine and Atrus had a bad egg, didn't know they had a bad egg, and the bad egg fouled up everything.
Well, actually, to that point, I want to finish off the ages first before we get there, but guess the one age they didn't bother touching was?
Myst?
Selentic.
Selentic.
The one where there's nobody to...
Oh, so the one where...
There's nobody to lord over. There's nobody to torture. There's nobody there.
So they can't have the power fantasies they're craving.
Right.
In Selentic. Also, unlike their father, they read what the side effects were and decided it wasn't for them.
But so the stranger, through the course of all of this, finds out about that there's this one page that Atrus needs to get back.
Okay.
And through the course of, like, these puzzles and stuff, you find out that there's this one secret chamber in the fireplace that, it's like behind the fireplace. You go in the fireplace, you hit some buttons, and it kind of rotates around. That's
kind of creepy, you know. Yeah.
But in there is just the book. You open it, there's Atrus. You go there with the page.
So you have to have the page.
Otherwise, you're stuck there, too.
Oh, is that the bad ending?
If you get stuck... No, there's 3 bad endings.
Oh!
But so you go with the page, you give it to Atrus. First off, he's like, who the hell are you? But...
What?
Yeah, pretty much. But Matrix is like, don't come here. Bring me the page first.
Oh, so yeah, because Atrus is like, then we're both stuck here, right. And that's just dumb.
So you bring him the page. He goes back to Myst. You wait a minute. Then he comes back and starts working on Riven again. He's like, you have the run of my... he's like, I'm sorry for my sons. You have the run of the ages in my library, which isn't... Like, it's not much, but you have the run of that in Myst Island.
Yeah.
And then you go back, because he just keeps working. Like, he's absorbing his work. He's one of those people. Workaholic.
Okay.
Which is actually how the brothers managed to do this. Like, their father was so absorbed in his work, he didn't realize that they had gone to this point of, like, hatching this plan and capturing Catherine and capturing him. Like, he had just gotten so absorbed in fixing some things.
So he neglected them through his own pursuits.
Right.
So it's almost like this whole game is also a parable of parenting. Of yes, you want to have these great legacy to pass on, but if you don't pay attention to what's going on in the background, it doesn't matter. It all is rendered to ash.
Right. So when you go back to Myst, you find that he actually burned the blue and the red books that Sirius and Achenar were in.
Oh.
And it's kind of weird. So in Myst and in Riven, before they had fully established everything, probably as a result of the game technology of the day and what they were doing with, these were called trap books, where they would trap you in a void that you could never escape from.
When you say trap book, I suddenly think of a trap house where it's just broken glass and there's, drugs hanging around and rats and just,
In Myst and Riven, this is non-canonical now. They said that the Richard A. Watson, one of the developers, has said this is just a game thing. This is not actually how it works in the story, but it's just a thing we had to do in-game to make a game.
Okay, because of the limitations of their janky little system.
To make it a game, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Is the trap book was basically someone stuck in a void, and that's why you can, like, see people on the screen and stuff, because there's nothing there, and then you would put your hand on it, and you would switch places, and then you'd be stuck.
Oh.
And that's the bad ending. If you give one of the brothers all the pages and then trade places with them, they get out, and they start ripping pages out, and you just start seeing everything go staticky.
Oh, no. Oh, that's so sad.
But, again, like, a trap book, it's used in the plot in both Myst and Riven, but it's not actually a thing in canon. It's just a game thing.
It's a game thing.
Yeah.
So the idea is that they would have done something similar.
Right.
But it would have been a different path.
It turns out, in a future game, you find out that they are actually in what is called a prison age. It is just a regular age, but it has no book out. Like, any linking book that was there has been destroyed.
Oh, okay.
So
you have to link to their book look to this descriptive age directly.
Yeah, you can link. You have to go through the descriptive age, and there is no linking book out of it.
So you're just stuck in there once you get in there.
Right.
Okay.
So they are stuck on 2 prison ages in the canon as it goes forward, which we'll get to when we get to Myst 4. There is another book, though, after Atrus comes back and lets you have the run of everything again. Mm-hmm. The center of the library kind of lifts up.
Oh.
Sorry, no, that's a mistaken. There's a book on the floor called it's the journal of the I don't remember the title, but it's the journal for an age called Rime. This is only in the real Myst games. This was never in any of the slideshow ones.
Okay. This is this 5th age that you wanted
This is the 5th age that they have.
Okay.
And it's kind of why I'm putting it at the end, because you only get to it after the game is done.
Oh.
So you have to get to Atrus.
Yeah.
And successfully complete the game before this will be accessible.
So this is kind of like an epilogue to the game.
This is an epilogue / teaser for the second game.
Oh.
So that's why I'm kind of working in now also.
Clever. Look at you.
So, well, they did it. I don't know if... I think Riven came out before Real Myst, but I could be mistaken. But it makes sense. So you get this book, and it kind of has a code for like how to unlock the book. The book is under the library. It kind of pops up in a pillar in the center of the library. You can get the descriptive book. You go to it. It is bitter cold for a reason. This is written purposely for one of Atrus's experiments.
Okay, so you're kind of in his own little test tube now.
It is bitter cold. It is polar night. There's never any sun.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not comfortable with that.
And it snows, like the ice is like feathers. They say it looks weirdly like floaty ice feathers.
I don't want to be here anymore, guys. I want to fly away on my ice feathers.
So,
someplace that has a sun.
The reason for this, Atrus found a certain crystal. Under certain energies, it kind of create a view to an age that's not written, or a view to an age that is written. Even if it's not one that he wrote, he can kind of get a window into it.
Okay, so it's a spyglass of sorts.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a quantum spyglass.
Quantum spyglass.
So
for all your quantum CIA needs.
Right. Mm-hmm. He, Catherine, and the boys all worked here. They were trying to peer into Catherine's home of Riven.
Was she not able to... Why was she trying to peer into there?
Because she couldn't go back.
Why?
We will have to get to that eventually.
No, so many hanging chads.
I've clipped a few of them.
Gosh, this voting machine's going to be so clogged.
But they're trying to look into Riven to see its condition, because there was a concern it might be collapsing. This is actually one of the few times I think in Myst proper that you actually see a letter from Catherine.
Oh.
She writes a letter to Atrus, and she has an ability to write, actually. She can write, but her writing is very dreamlike. It doesn't quite work like other ages.
Is that because she's Rivenese, or is that just that's just the way she's learned how to do her writing?
It's because I don't think you have to be Dunny to write. I think you have to understand Dunny to write.
Right.
So, she's written a couple other ages. She doesn't write a lot, but her ages are very dreamlike. So, Rime was written so that they could have this cold, extreme cold, to kind of help these crystals not have sympathetic frequencies, so they could actually work them to work this machine. And so Catherine has this dream kind of where she sees the crystal combination they need to see Riven, and she kind of just colors the crystals and stuff in this letter to Atrus. Okay. And that's kind of how you see Riven for the first time.
Oh, wow.
In the canon. And that's kind of where we end for Myst.
So essentially let's conclude this wild ride of the world that we're in, because this is so crazy. So you're doing your thing in New Mexico in the 1800s.
Yes.
Living your best life, trying not to get the polio or get consumption, whatever it is. And you're walking around, you're like, hey, this is an interesting book, Myst. Oh my gosh, it's moving. What happens? You touch it. Oh great, I'm stuck here. I don't know how I got here. I don't know what's going on, but I guess I gotta climb these stairs and figure out what's going on. And through this all, you essentially, the first two people you talk to turn out to be evil overlords of other book worlds that Daddy wrote for them to explore.
Well, Daddy wrote for himself to explore.
Right, and they decided that it was actually theirs, and your whole hope is that essentially, if they don't trick you, because I'm assuming they're tricking you as well.
They're tricking you. Yeah. They're both trying to trick you so that they can get out of their prison.
Right, exactly. And that essentially what they're trying to trick you to get the books, and as you realize later on, you're reading the journals of Atrus, and he's talking about these guys, and you realize they're both bogus, and you've gone through all these weird worlds that for some reason are always surrounded by water. It's like this guy constantly had a water thing and must have gotten up 4 times each night to pee or something like that.
Some of his later ages are like in deserts and whatever. So there's
when he finally gets some variety.
Right.
So, but first everything, all right, so it needs to be isolated. So it's in an ocean, right? Every single time.
In fact, his first ever age, thinking about it now, it's in a book that we'll get to next time we cover Myst, but his first ever age is like in a not a canyon, but like in a depression in the ground. So there's not even like there's nothing.
Oh, so this is more like Picasso. This is kind of like the equivalent of his blue phase. He's going through an ocean phase, and we explore Atrus's ocean age phase, and also discover that his sons ruin everything. That you don't want to be friends with them, and you finally free Atrus, and he's like, cool, whatever. And then suddenly you're like, Atrus, what's this mess you left on the ground? Oh, it's Rime. Oh, God, it's really cold. Oh, okay, I can see the things that your wife wanted to see through the crystal, I guess.
Yeah.
You never end up going back home, do you, as the stranger?
You do.
Oh.
Yeah, surprisingly you do.
At the exact same point that you left, or?
No, time still travels.
Oh, okay. Because that would be the most disappointing thing.
You can never return.
Yeah.
No, apparently you do. It's kind of weird. We'll get to that because you do get to go home, and you also still have more adventures with Atrus after that.
Well, yeah. I mean, you did find Myst on Earth.
Yes.
Did we ever figure out later why Myst was on Earth?
Yes.
Okay. That's another episode then.
That'll be the next time we cover Myst. It's going to be There's 2 points that
Who else is annoyed by these hanging chads? All these hanging chads.
Look, like I said, if you think this is bad, wait till we get to Elder Scrolls. It's going to be even worse.
Well, Elder Scrolls, I feel like, is easier to compartmentalize because they have their own little books that they do this stuff with. Okay, I guess.
But that's Myst.
Oh, well, that's the first game.
In a nutshell.
That's the lore of Myst in a nutshell.
Just the first game.
You're right.
I didn't want to go into all the connections and all the metaverse and everything because it really gets a little complicated. And again...
Oh, because this wasn't complicated at all. This whole quantum library travel.
Okay, that part's a little complicated, but it's not, the intrigue of like a ton of family history. It's just this one family. It's not bringing other people into it. It's not bringing ancestors into it. It's just Atrus, Catherine, and their sons, and then the people that they meet in 4 worlds.
So, which is literally a parable about why you must not be so overwhelmed with your work when you're raising children. That's pretty much the lesson I've learned here. That it's essentially the Grimm's fairy tales for parents of if you do your work too hard and you don't remember to raise your children, they may end up being the most evil mofos you have ever seen and decide to lock you away forever so that way they can torture and steal and pillage and be all around just horrible human beings. Okay, I got it. I think we got it here.
Well, let's see what type of lore we do next time then.
Oh, that's on you. Okay, so you choose it. I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay.
I will admit I like this more than I thought I would. So I'm looking forward to enjoying something more than I thought I would, but just was not ready for the undercover evil sons. I want to know what was Christmas like for these people. This must have been awful.
A Myst Christmas.
That would have been so awful.
That's interesting. There is a Myst online game that's actually still running. It's running through fan contributions at this point. It's not it's like official, but it's a small community. It's not a massive game.
Exactly.
But I wonder if they have like holidays. I never actually looked into that. I should look into that.
Okay. Can you imagine doing the holidays with those 2 sons? and what parents let their sons get that? Okay. That's kind of the mystery that I'm more interested in the future. But there's all these other hanging chads that we have to take care of. But I guess that's going to be a couple episodes or so from now. So
yeah, do something else and then we'll get back to Myst.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. Are you guys hanging on? Hang in there as much as I am.